Welcome to the Ishara's Reading Podcast, and I'm Ishara. Today we have a very special guest with us, Miss Aida Salazar. Welcome to the show, Miss Aida.
Hi, thank you, Ishara. So good to be here with you.
She also brought someone with her. She brought her friend Julia from Spain, who's visiting. She's also a homeschooler too, like myself.
That's right. And I used to be a homeschooling mom. My kids are now grown up, so I don't homeschool anymore. They're all grown up, but here we are in homeschool community.
Oh, let me tell you guys a little bit about Miss Aida. She is an award-winning author, art and social justice activist. Some of her awards are Collab Honors Award, the Americas Award, Tomas Rivera Children's Book Award. Wow, Miss Aida, that is a lot of awards. I'm sorry about slowing down when I say your name. It's a little strange to pronounce.
It is. It's a hard name to pronounce. It's a lot of vowels.
Yeah. Aida.
You did a great job.
Thank you. I usually interview the author before I read the book, but I decided to mix it up a little bit. But I guess it gives me a little bit of pointers on how I read your book.
Right.
So how did I do?
I didn't make it out.
How did I do?
Oh, you did great. Oh my goodness. Your review of the book is so excellent. I loved all of the connections that you made. I loved the moments that you connected with the sadness in the book and the strength in it, the way that you read it. It was really, really wonderful. I was very impressed. And just by your reading and presentation of it, I had to ask your mom if you were homeschooled. And I was right, because homeschoolers do this wonderful kinds of creative thinking and innovative thinking. It's really great.
Thank you. I actually can relate to the Defense Force myself. My great aunt, who I told you about earlier, served in the Guyana Defense Force.
Oh my goodness! There you go. You come from a lineage of warriors like me.
My great aunt was a very kind woman. She was kind, but she was very strong, as in she could beat someone up with an umbrella. Okay, shutting down that part and getting back to this part. Your great aunt, Jovita, was born February 24th, 1911, correct?
Yes.
My great-grandmother, her name is Great-Grandma Mavis, was born September 2nd, 1929.
Wow.
I know, 18 years apart. If my grandmother was born in Mexico instead of Guyana, they could have been friends.
They could have, and if there were boats and planes like they were in the 1911s, there were boats, but not planes as much. And imagine they could have also been friends if they traveled like we travel now. Just like you and Julia are now friends.
I had a question. How old are you?
I was 8 yesterday, but I'm 9 now. Yesterday was my birthday.
Oh, happy birthday! Happy birthday!
Thank you. Thank you. Julia, to return the question, how old are you?
I'm 9, I'm going to 10.
I'm 9 too. Thanks to it being yesterday. I'm so glad you had a chance to listen to my read aloud of Jovita Wore Pants. What was your favorite part?
The part where you talked about all of the children who are suffering from war and everybody who is suffering because of wars. I actually almost cried when I read that part because the story of Jovita is about
Courage.
struggle, right? Exactly. It's about struggle, and so the fact that you were able to make a connection and feel empathy for what's happening in the world right now, especially in Palestine, I felt like, wow, that was such a powerful connection. I was very moved by that.
I'm actually, if I be honest, I'm actually writing 2 novels.
What?
Not that I am silly. I'm doing one about the immune system, and the other is a digital one about how to stop all the wars. And peace is always fair in the light.
Oh, yes, thank you. We need it. We need it from light workers like you and you.
And you!
And me!
And you, Mama!
And Mama, too.
Everyone expects the light to be a giant ball of light, like the sun, but it can always be as small as a tiny flicker. So, if you shine the light from inside your heart, you can show others the way when they've lost hope in this world.
That's so wise, yes.
Thank you. Why did you decide to share Jovita's story?
Why did I decide to share Jovita's story? Well, because I realized that I had this very special person in my family history that people really didn't know about, especially children.
What?
And the thing, yeah, people in Mexico really didn't know about her contributions, the things that she had done, and because my mom told me about Jovita, she was the one who kind of introduced me to stories about her. I didn't get to meet Jovita, but she told me the stories, and Jovita wrote her own book of her own life. And so I wanted to share that with children because she had already written her own story for adults. But I thought it would be really great for kids
To
and
learn it
people
too.
in my age to know it too, exactly. And so that's why I did that. I wanted to bring her story out of what they call olvido, which means forgotten, and I wanted to bring it to recent times, right now, and because she was so brave, and I thought other kids deserve to learn about a brave woman.
Jovita is amazing. She is someone of strength and courage who did stuff for her family. She was a woman in the man's war.
Right. Imagine. It was so difficult at a time when women were not allowed to do very much.
It makes me think of the story Mulan a lot.
Yes, it does. Yeah, that was another great connection, right? Because there are more women in history that have done very brave things and had to fight in men's wars to protect their families, protect their honor, protect their countries, protect their religions, and their rights.
I'm sorry, but I could not hear Julia.
Oh, you couldn't hear Julia. Okay, you want to say a little bit louder about Mulan?
Oh, yes, Mulan, it's like the same because she wanted to go to the war because her father couldn't go to the war because he was too
Debilitated,
Yes.
disabled. I have a family, Auntie Julia. I actually can make a connection to that in my actual family, both sides actually. My great aunt, Auntie Betty, that I talked to you about earlier, because of the war, she got disabled and was in a wheelchair, sadly. And my grandfather, on my father's side, he had cancer, and don't worry, he's actually still alive. Happy part! I got to be both sides of my grandparents. It's a really blessed thing. And because of the cancer, it clamped onto his nerve that caused him not able to walk for a while. But don't worry, he's getting better. But then an infection came along. But he's getting better from that too.
Well, with a granddaughter like you, it'd be easy to get though. I'd be fighting for my life too, just to be around you.
Thank you. Question 5. What do you think Jovita would want to say or advice she would give to girls in 2024?
Ooh, she would say, to be brave, to be okay with doing hard things, because hard things will come in life.
Yeah.
And we have to find the courage within ourselves to do the right thing and sometimes the brave thing. So I think that's what she would say.
Thanks, Miss Aida. That would be really helpful for all the young women who are going to watch this episode. I've been on both sides of the spectrum as myself, easy and hard. Sometimes it's really painful.
Yes. Yes. But you know what? It's really important. This is what Aida would say. Miss Aida would say that even though it's difficult, every time that you challenge yourself with something really hard,
Get better.
Even if you fail, your brain grows. Oh, the light one. Yeah, your brain grows with every time, with every challenge. It's good for your brain because challenging things. We learn so much from challenging things. When things are easy, they become kind of remote. They kind of become like
not
easy
useful.
to do. Whereas challenging things, it does something to your brain. I would say, do something hard because it'll make your brain grow.
I actually have messages that my mother put around this whole classroom. One of them says, I learn more from mistakes than I can from success. And that's basically what you just said.
It's right. It's right. We got Julia melting on here. You see that? She melted and she came back up.
I like to draw characters, Japanese anime to be precise, to help me relax and express my emotions. Other than writing, what do you do to express your emotions? I also heard you write poetry.
Yes, I write poetry. That's all about expression. But I like to garden. I like to spend a lot of time in the garden. And we're out here in the garden right now.
We have a whole
Want to see a
giant.
little bit of our garden? I don't know. Actually, if we walk away, we might not be able to because of the internet.
Yeah.
Let's see. See if you can turn it and see where. Can you see it?
Yes, we have a garden too. Wow, that's amazing. We actually have something in common. We have a garden too. I saw that you also write poetry, like I said earlier. Where does your inspiration come from?
Inspiration comes from a lot of different places. Sometimes it could be an emotion that I feel. Sometimes it could be something that I see that's not right. But sometimes it comes from my ancestors. And it's the time when I'm waking up, like from a deep sleep, I'm waking up, and sometimes I hear voices. Sometimes I've heard little spirits who say, Aida, write my story. And I jump out of bed and I write the story. And it's really magnificent because I just go with it.
I really like it because our family members may not be with us physically, but they are with us spiritually. They're just in heaven. So because they can still talk to us, you'll just not hear them like you. They can talk to you in your dreams, but not in person like this.
Yeah, exactly. And that's where I get much of my inspiration from my ancestors, just like that.
Wow, that's really cool. I know where my ancestral original place is. It's Ghana.
Julia's gonna tell us where her ancestors are from.
Some ancestors of are from Costa Rica, and they are some
Spain,
Spain,
Mm-hmm.
and
Middle East.
and,
From France.
yes, and France. What was the other one? It was like no, it was a me. So
Oh, there's some also from Nigeria. The DNA comes from Nigeria.
Wow, that's a lot of places. That's a lot.
And El Salvador. She comes from the whole world. And I'm mostly Mexican and Spanish. But for me, my ancestors come from Mexico. They come from indigenous people. I'm half indigenous. A little over actually. And then I have also 8% African from North and East African. Yeah.
I'm also from a First Nations people. I know what most of how many places I actually come from. Just I forgot a couple because my parents added a couple. You have written several amazing award-winning books. Which one was the hardest to write and why?
Oh, that's a great question. The hardest book to write was probably the historical fiction. Historical fiction means that you write a book based on history during a certain time in history. And so I wrote a book called A Seed in the Sun. And A Seed in the Sun takes place in 1965 in Central California, in a place that I've never lived, and in a place that, or in a time where before I was even born. Because I was born in 1972, so this was like 7 years before I was born. And so writing a book that takes place in a time and place that you don't know is hard because you have to do a lot of research. So I watched videos, I read books, I interviewed people who were alive at the time and who were children at the time. I went to the it's about the 1965 Delano grape strike. The farm workers went on strike to fight for better wages and better conditions in the fields, and they were led by Cesar Chavez and Dolores Huerta, two great leaders in our nation, labor leaders and civil rights leaders. And so and Larry Idliang, a Filipino American, also together they started the United Farm Workers of America. And so I went to the grape fields and I walked the fields and I touched the grape leaves and I talked to some farm workers because I wanted wanted to know what it was like to experience to work under 100-degree heat, which I've never done. And I also spent a lot of time in the garden, putting my hands in the earth, observing plants, and trying to kind of connect with the farm workers from a very personal space. So that was a hard book to write because I was writing from something I didn't totally know. But the thing about it also was that I discovered that my grandfather was a farm worker. And he
Wait,
had this story.
what?
My grandfather who fought with Jovita in the Cristero War, he was also a Cristero.
Wait,
So
was he her father or which one?
cousin, he was her cousin, Jovita's cousin, and so
That's still really awesome.
yeah, it's really awesome. Yeah, and they were next door neighbors. Not only were they cousins, but they lived right next door to each other, and so they cared about each other so much. They were like brother and sister almost. And so my grandfather, after they left the rancho by los blancos, where Jovita and my grandfather and my mom were born, when they left to the United States to work on the fields, and they were working in McAllen, Texas, on the fields. And one day, the men and the workers were on the back of a bed of a truck, an open truck, and they were all standing the back of the bed of a truck, and they were on their way out to pick in the fields, and the fields are really big, and so they took them by truck. And the back of the bed of the truck unhinged from the front, like this, it broke, and all the people went flying and fell, and it was a terrible accident. And when my grandfather fell, he broke his back and was paralyzed from the waist down, and he was never able to work again in the fields, the thing that he knew how to do best, because he was a farm worker back in the rancho. And so he went back to Mexico, and he lived a very sad and poor existence because of that accident. And so my grandfather sacrificed his ability to walk for this country in the fields of this country. And so that was a hard book to write because I wanted to bring all of that history. I wanted to make sure that it was correct and make sure that I wasn't making a mistake, and honoring my grandfather at the same time.
Wow.
Yes, he was very special man.
I know you loved him very much.
Yes. But he was also really funny, and even though he was in a wheelchair, he would do funny things. He would scare kids because his back was broken. He would put his legs up here, and he would scare the kids that would come by. They would go ah.
What?
And he would tease them. But he was also really nice because he sold honey after he was paralyzed. He sold honey, and he would sneak, like they would put them in these clay pots, the beekeepers, and they would come down from the mountain and sell him these little clay pots filled with honey, and he would sell it to the pueblo, the people in the pueblo, and he would sometimes steal a little bit of honey. He put a stick in the honey, and he dip it in the honey and give it to the kids.
He's so much. Some of your family sacrificed for your family? Wow. Sadly, this is our last question.
Okay.
A while back, not too long ago, in season 2, I interviewed Joy Harjo, who's also from a First Nations people and a poet, 23rd Poet Laureate of the U.S.
Wow.
So, we talked about how telling stories from the past are important, and sometimes are left in the dark. And why others become legendary. Is there an untold story inside you that wants to be told?
Oh my goodness, so many stories. I have so many stories. I feel like I started publishing when I was 45, and now I'm 51. And so I have so many stories. I have like a whole lifetime of stories that have been just waiting to be told. I want to tell the story of my mom and my grandparents. I want to tell the story about what happened to me and my family as well, my immediate family, my baby. I lost a baby about 20 years ago, little baby. And so I'd love to share that story.
That's
I
really
want to
sad.
share the story of my 17-year-old sister who also passed away when she was a teenager. I want to also tell a lot of stories. Those are all sad stories, but I also want to tell stories of joy and resistance and all the different things that inspire me as I look around. And my next series of books is coming that I haven't. It's kind of a secret, but I'm going to share it here with you. Is a story about a homeschooler. A series. It's a chapter book series.
I love chapters.
So.
The graphic novel I'm going to create about the immune system is going to be a chapter 2.
Yes. I want to introduce you to Julia's mom, Andrea. Come here, let's see. How do we get this? Come here. She's been
Hi.
This is Andrea. And she's also
Hi, Miss Andrea.
Hello.
I can't wait to read your new book.
Yes. I've got one book coming out in the fall, and it's called When Water Flows. And it's a board book. That's for babies, 0 to 5. And then next year I have an anthology called Sing Me a Story. And it's a book of short stories in verse. They're short stories, but told in poetry.
Ooh.
And yeah, so it's called Sing Me a Story because poetry is kind of like music. And so they're all short stories about music.
Wow. This is going to be such an interesting book here.
Yeah.
I can't wait to see how it turns out.
She wants to show you something, Ishara. Can she show you just a few pages of her textbook that she creates?
Yes.
It has some of the projects.
Whoa. Nice. A family tree.
Spain.
Spain. Yeah.
Wars.
Oh, did you see this? There's in each sheet she includes the different wars and the situations, political situations that each of them created. Each of the Spanish kings. Hold them accountable.
I noticed the little pockets there, but I didn't know what they were for. Ooh.
Well, I'm so glad that you all met. That you met Andrea and Julia, and that hopefully you'll be able to connect and be pen pals maybe, right?
It was so nice talking to you both. Thank you for listening to this episode of the Ishara's Reading Podcast.